Hey everybody, Eric Spites here for The Game. We're back with another episode of Your Favorite Game, joined by my two favorite co-hosts, George Foster.
Hello, I'm back.
And the Gamer's Editor-in-Chief, Stacey Henley.
Oh, never left.
George makes his triumphant return. Did you have a good time in Las Vegas, my friend?
I did. I can talk about it soon, but definitely Elvis Presley didn't lie. You see it once, it changes you. That isn't the exact lyric.
Did Elvis ever say that?
Something along those lines.
Did he personally tell you that, or?
Yeah, he texts me. I've got it somewhere.
All right. Very good. Today, we're here to talk about our favorite games with detective mode. And we chose detective mode, though it's not always called detective mode, of course. But detective mode is sort of references the most famous example of it. Maybe a game one of us will be talking about potentially. But sometimes this is called listening mode or senses.
Eagle vision is the big one.
Eagle vision. Yes. We have many examples of this. This is any kind of heightened senses or technological device that is used to give your character some sort of overlay that heightens the UI of the game, something that gives you insight into the world around you. And this is a divisive mechanic. We've done things like this on other episodes before. People hate detective mode, detective vision.
Yes.
And it seems to be just a pure oversaturation of the mechanic. I when I was doing my research, I came at this from a perspective of, this is in every game and it sucks. And to be honest, I mostly found examples where it's pretty cool and used cleverly. And then a few where it's like, do we really need this in this game? That kind of thing. So I'm really interested to see what you two think about it. Before we jump in, any initial thoughts on detective vision?
I feel like it's kind of been replaced a little bit in modern years. I know you've said like it's oversaturated, but I feel like we see less specific detective vision or, those kind of modes. And it's just yellow paint now, which is also a thing that people tend to really, really hate. And I think, obviously, we've already mentioned detective vision, as it was called in the Arkham series, and the Eagle vision. Those games, at least initially, both seem to be using it. They kind of both together invented their own version of it, and therefore it kind of really fit their world. And I think then a lot of games just went, we should do that for us. So I think a lot of the bad examples are just using it as a trend. They have detective vision because their game came out between 2008 and 2018.
Yeah. Yeah, and the games where it's used poorly, I think, is the yellow paint thing, right?
Yeah.
It's where it loses the sort of like thematic integrated, this belongs in this game because it makes sense in this world, and just becomes like our game is too visually cluttered and we need to give players an easy way to see where to go or what to look at.
Yeah.
And I think that's what people are mostly critical of.
No, I think in some cases it makes it more cluttered. That's the worst
I'm
part.
on the side of I roll my eyes whenever it's introduced in a game, especially if it has no narrative standing. Like in The Last of Us, it's kind of essential for how that game plays. Well, unless you play on like the hardest difficulty, but I also go, okay, so Joel can just hear through walls and everything, and stuff like that. But I still use it. Like that's the thing. I'll complain, I'll roll my eyes, be like, so cheap, idiots, and I'll use it the whole game. So I'm a hypocrite, is essentially what I'm saying.
We had this when we did escort missions as well.
After we go through our favorites, I do want to talk about Last of Us specifically, because that one does kind of feel like it might be a bit of a turning point for these. However, first, let's start with our favorites. This is your favorite game, after all. George, since you were gone last week, let's start with you. What is your favorite game with detective vision?
my favorite game with detective vision is Mirror's Edge, and it's runner
Oh,
vision.
yeah.
Yes.
The red, the
Yes.
art style. I love Mirror's Edge.
I was hoping one of you were going to pick this. I thought it might have been Stacey, but great. Tell us about runner's vision.
Well, I had a long list, and I'll talk about some of them as well. But this one struck me as being the most simple, even though, again, it really plays with the idea of detective vision. It's not really that at all. In Mirror's Edge, obviously, the whole point of that game is parkour, first-person movement, and one of the struggles of that genre, like infamously, like look at Half-Life, look at any game in first-person before 2008 with platforming, they always really struggle with perspective and finding your way. I guess that's always been one of the harder parts of doing it in first-person.
All the way back to
Mirror's
Jump and
Edge came
Flash.
up. What?
All the way back to Jump and Flash. One of the first.
Jump and Flash?
Oh no!
It's a platformer from the really early 90s. Like all of the kind of like Crash and Spyro and Rayman and all. They are all built on this. What Jump and Flash did, but for some reason it was first person. It was really really wonky.
Is that the rabbit one?
Yeah, the robot rabbit.
Oh, I do know that.
Rabbit
Yeah, it rang like a slope bell. Yeah, that was It was either Sucker Punch or Insomniac or someone else, right? I swear it was someone big.
I think it was the team that went on to become Japan Studio, but it wasn't Japan Studio. But
well, they did it badly. They did it badly. Mirror's Edge simplified it so much. So one of the best things about Mirror's Edge to this day is how, I don't want to say simplistic, minimalistic its art style is.
Definitely.
So it's very, very, I can't think of the word. Like,
It's clean.
I'm just going to go with minimalistic. Yeah, clean. That is exactly the word. Easier. It's very clean, but that has the kind of, I guess, almost the reverse yellow paint effect of it sometimes being difficult where to go. So what they did in Mirror's Edge instead is Faith has like a special vision where everything that you need to interact with and everything that will guide you is a red color. And at any point, not only does that help, so you're just running past, like you'll see a bag on the floor that's collectible and it's colored red, or you'll see a door that's red that you can interact with. But you can also specifically, for this whole detective vision element that we're talking about, you can hold down B and you're just instantly directed that way. And that is really it. Like,
Yeah,
there are so many examples that are like more in depth that I could have talked about, but I think for what Mirror's Edge is and what it managed to do for first-person platforming, it's great. I think that's just one of the things it does best.
So is the conceit that you're like seeing the world the way a runner sees the world?
I don't think they even have a conceit. I think just say
it's like Faith sensing an opportunity to use things. The collectibles aren't as well explained, but like the doors and the vents, climbs and vents a lot. It's a big event game, whereas they are supposed to be like, I can't remember if there's a textual explanation of she's trained or she has some implant or something, but the idea is you're seeing the opportunities in the world.
Yeah, you're noticing the things that she would pick up on around her.
Because you play first person, you kind of have her brain rather than yours. Yeah.
And I find it really cool as well. I might be misremembering because this is a game that's, I think this predates Batman Arkham Asylum.
2008, I've got my head from Mirror's Edge. Well,
it is 2008. I think it was April or May, and I think Asylum was, I want to say October. I'm not 100%, but Halloween I think it predates it. Halloween game indeed, with Scarecrow. But one of the cool things as well is I can remember it is that the color will fade. Like once you're past the point you need to get to, it's like if you smash down a door, I'm almost certain if you look back, that door's a different color, or it's not the like bright red that it was because you've interacted with it, showing it's not just like the environment painted red. It's actually face vision and like Stacey says, like sensing the opportunity. So it's really well done. I cannot remember for the life of me how the sequel handled it. Like, I don't know if they tried to explain it there or if they bothered with it as much, because that went kind of open world. I think it's definitely still there, but
yeah, I can't remember if I had the hold B and it'll take you on a path of least resistance, but quite slowly. I can't remember if Catalyst had that, but it still had the same aesthetic as far as I can remember. The red streaks and kind of clean, minimalistic design.
That's cool. It's kind of a combination of the detective vision and the yellow paint then.
Yeah. It's yellow paint done right to all those people who get really angry about that for some reason. As if it's not just a color on a screen guiding people who might not be as experienced.
I really
even
don't
get
like
me
yellow
started.
paint.
I don't mind it. Look, I know this is a different discussion. Maybe we'll do yellow paint one day.
I
but,
prefer Detective Vision to yellow paint.
Ooh, I don't.
Is that a controversial take? I think Detective Vision is fully admitting we are telling you how to play the video game. Yellow paint is textually in the world and is therefore very stupid.
Mm-hmm.
I hate when I disagree with Stacey and then you instantly bring up a point that makes me agree. I'm like, oh yeah, maybe I'm wrong.
Is this a series that got lost in the Square Enix sell-off? Like
Mirror's Edge is EA, I believe.
Oh yes, that's
it's
right.
It's EA and DICE. Yeah, I think they just
DICE,
don't want to do it anymore.
Oh, they just abandoned it.
Catalyst didn't do very well.
By EA standards, so it might have sold like 2 million, and it was a good game. I liked it, but that is not enough for Mirror's Edge, apparently.
Yeah.
Rather that than Battlefield.
Very good. Yeah. Very good. Stacey, would you like to tell us your favorite game with Detective Vision?
Yes. My favorite game with Detective Vision is Ghost of Tsushima. I've picked this for a couple of reasons. One, because I like how Detective Vision works in the game, which is an obvious reason to pick it. But I really love how they told us it would work in the game, which turned out to be a bit of a lie. So I want to talk about both parts of that. So in the game, when you do the Detective Vision, the main...
Wait. Sorry. I have not played it, so let me tell you what I think it does, because I just remember what they told us.
Okay.
I like this.
I thought that the way it works is that it's completely diegetic with the world, and the wind blows, and then you follow the wind wherever it leads you.
That's what they told us would happen, yeah.
Okay, that's what I thought is how it worked. All right, now tell us how it actually works.
When you push, I think it's the button in the middle of the PlayStation control. I can't remember what that one's called. Touchpad?
The touchpad.
Yeah.
Touchpad, yeah.
The screen would kind of go that kind of grayscale color, and you'd get like some like Japanese like twinkling music, and there would be a kind of crest of wind, and if you just use it once, it does a kind of like, oh, it's vaguely over there, even though there's already a quest marker, which I think defeats the purpose of it a little bit.
Yeah.
But when you use it like a second time, it just like a white line comes out of Jin. You know, have you seen Donnie Darko when he's like linked to the pole and there's just like that weird like goop flowing out of him? So like basically the wind like flows directly out of Jin's heart, and it goes around corners and over huts. Like wherever you need to go, the wind will blow specifically in that direction. And it's just like a line. It's like just like following footsteps in The Witcher. But I like the thematic nature of it, because I didn't want to pick some of the more obvious ones because I thought we'd discuss those anyway. And then a lot of the other ones that I thought, I like this game, I felt had quite irritating uses of Detective Vision. Like the Tomb Raider trilogy use. I love Tomb Raider. I don't think I've mentioned Tomb Raider much on the show, but I hated the way Tomb Raider did it. I don't like the way Horizon does it.
I like Horizon.
Yeah, we'll debate that later.
Yeah, we'll get to that.
I don't like the way Horizon does it. So I went for Tsushima because as much as I don't like how heavy-handed a lot of Tsushima is with, it's Kurosawa mode and like...
Yeah.
I do think the very obvious commitment to its themes was something that is kind of worth celebrating. I think we all hope that with Yotai it brings it together a little bit less clunkily. I think it was quite a clumsy game. It's very heavily like, this samurai is very concerned with honor, and that's his entire story for the game. I would like Yotai to expand on the things that worked about the game. But I think one of those was it was entirely committed to the type of thing it wanted to be. And the way it worked Detective Vision into the theming and the use of nature, obviously, the leaves and the grass, that was a big part of the game in Tsushima as well. You could hide in certain types of grass. You went into, when we discussed the snow, I said how the snow kind of affects how you can play and using the oil sword. So there's a lot of natural elements that play into Tsushima. And obviously, the foxes and the hot springs, probably actually the best examples. So I like the fact that it doesn't go, here you have mystic witcher vision. It's another one that I hate. It doesn't just go, you are a samurai and therefore you know things. It just goes kind of like, just follow the wind, which feels like probably would have been done a lot better, but it feels like the kind of thing you would have seen in the samurai movies that it's very clearly aping. And I think its intent was better.
I did too. Just very, in a more basic.
I think Mirror's Edge is a great one.
Is the idea that it's like divine direction of some kind, or what is the theme? Like, what's the idea?
More like Stacey says, with the wind blows. So where the wind blows.
The idea is Jin knows the island, Tsushima. He's the ghost of Tsushima. You've played Tsushima, so they've been invaded by the Mongols, and Jin is kind of giving up his code of honor in order to protect the villagers and the people. And that's why the hot springs heal him. That's why the foxes help him. Everything on the island is aiding him. So it's the idea that the island itself is guiding him to safety.
Right.
It's almost, it's not so much that he has a connection with the island, it's that the island has grown a personality and decided to help. Now, they obviously really downplay that. I would love them to do more with that idea. I don't think they're ever going to. If it's not a fantasy game, it doesn't try to be. But I think that's the general aim. That's always how I read it, at least.
I honestly had no idea this was a thing. I don't like Tsushima as much as you do, Stace, but I have played it. I've played it to completion, and I have never recognized that. I was just like, hot springs. They're nice and foxes are cool. Like that was my understanding.
I wasn't a massive fan of it the first time. I thought it was a little bit obvious, and even when it came out a little bit dated, it wasn't helpful that it came out the month after Last of Us Part 2. And it was one of those, gaming has these kind of periods where they go up and down on hot periods of discourse and controversy. So I think didn't click with it that much the first time. Played it again because I really like the photo mode, and I tend to replay games entirely for photo mode, a lot slower and not really doing the objectives. Did it with Spider-Man, did it with God of War, did it with a bunch of them. And found I liked it a lot more the second time around, and have since kind of dabbled with it again, which I'm really looking forward to your time. But I don't begrudge people who just kind of are a one and done with Tsushima. I think it's that. Yeah. I feel it's the game that is probably, that's how most people are going to experience it.
Mm-hmm.
I think it works for that. I like. It's like when we talked about Red Dead 2, which we definitely will be discussing in a bit. But I like it when someone can have a deeper understanding of it, or you can just enjoy it as, like I did, simplistic. But I actually really like that interpretation, because before I just thought the detective vision was, like in most cases, kind of half-assed. Here we go, just see where you need to go. But that's actually an interesting way to look at it.
I think there probably is an element of that.
I mean, there's always an element of that.
I think it's open to interpretation a lot more. Tsushima.
Yeah, it's top down design, right? Like, we need this mechanic. How do we justify it?
100%.
Which is pretty much how all these work. But that is a really cool example, just because like every other example is it's either tech or it's a super sense. It's power, it's all comes from the character, and this is the world speaking to the character. I think that's a really cool example.
Like a Moana deal.
Yeah, maybe I'll play it someday. Probably not.
I'm shocked you haven't already. It's very good.
I'm so picky about open world games. I don't.
Combat alone is worth it. I think if you got into that, combat is what makes Tsushima stand out to me.
The combat, I love the combat in the duels. I think the open world combat, I am surprised is so beloved, because I think it takes a long time to unlock it. And controversially, I think this idea of, it does stances. These people have not played Yakuza before. I just don't think it's that original idea. But I pick Tsushima. I like it, but I think the duels are a much better part of the combat than the just kind of random clashes that people seem to love.
Mm-hmm. Fair enough. Yeah, and I always think of this as a game you don't like, but then you talk about it a lot.
Yeah, I think that's probably.
It's the Assassin's Creed one of its time. I know we've done this before, but.
Very good. Okay. Moving on.
moving on.
Absolutely.
Eric,
Somebody say the magic words.
What is your favorite game with a detective vision mode?
My favorite game with detective vision is also my first repeat for the show. I've chosen this game before. I'll tell you the episode. I don't expect either of you to remember it. I picked this game, I believe, in episode 3, your favorite game with no dialogue.
Oh my god.
Blank stares.
Oh my god.
Stacey thinks she's got it.
No.
Stacey will know. I'm
trying to remember. I'm trying to remember what they were. I'm trying to remember it also.
No, I said Journey.
Of like I said, and I remember that, and I said Untitled Goose Game. What did you say?
The mechanic in this game is visors. And the game is Metroid Prime.
Oh, for God's sake. It was right there.
Now, the thing, I forgot you mentioned that, but I knew you were going to say this because when Metroid Prime was remade, you wrote that it was the inventor of and the best version of Detective Vision that existed.
Yes.
So I knew you were going to say Prime, and that threw me off.
Yes, I did indeed. Yes, I think of Metroid Prime as a detective game. Because it is an investigation of the Chozo planet, right?
Yeah.
It's Samus arriving on a dead world where a lot of interesting things have happened in the past, and learning about that world and how it came to be the way it is, who the people were, where they went. That is the story of Metroid Prime, and it's all told through an investigation using Samus's visors. So the default visors is just like the combat visor, which is just how you play first person games. And then the scanner visor, which is how you interact with the world. It's how you read the lore and look at the computers and learn about the world. In that piece you were talking about, Stacey, I did not talk about the other visors in the game and throughout the series, which are much closer to the sort of detective mode that we've come to know from Batman onward. And those are things like the thermal visor, which allows you to see heat sources and allows you to see invisible enemies, and the X-ray visor, which allows you to see secret walls and things like that. There's a lot of different ones throughout the series, but those are, I think, much closer to this idea of like an overlay on the screen that changes how you see the world to highlight objects of interest.
Clearly, Joel had these visors.
Yeah. So it's sort of like the way that you switch visors. It's sort of it definitely feels like it evolves from the Metal Gear tradition, which sort of predates detective mode, but definitely informed it, right? Because in Metal Gear, you put on your night vision goggles, or there's other ones too. But
do you have thermal ones in Metal Gear?
Sorry,
do you have thermal ones in Metal Gear, or is that just the night vision?
Yeah, I think that's the night vision, but
infrared, maybe. I think that's a thing. It sounds like a thing.
It definitely feels like Arkham's detective mode evolved from things like that, like Metal Gear's night vision, or the lens of truth from Ocarina of Time.
That's a throwback one,
That goes straight over my head.
Yeah. Oh, I forgot you're not a Zelda guy.
Talk about Breath of the Wild. I'm there.
It's sort of like an item that lets you see the world a different way. And I love the way Metroid does that, specifically because Metroid is a detective story. Metroid Prime is a detective story. So, yes. Love the visors.
I've still never played Prime, but in doing my research, I saw that.
Loser.
I know, I bought it. I couldn't get into it. I will one day because I know you like it. But I saw it. I was like, oh my God, that's definitely Eric's pick. I don't know why I didn't remember it. As soon as you said it was a repeat. I thought you were going to say Hitman, which was on my list as well.
Which I did. That was this Santa Claus episode. I remember that.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
When you said repeat, I was set, but
I do really appreciate the intention of the detective mode when it is well justified in the world. I know that shouldn't matter that much because, like we said before,
it does.
Like we said before, it is just a mechanic in a video game, and then they have to figure out how to justify it. But Metroid Prime's works so well because it's what the whole game is about. You know, it's like its core to the experience of playing that game is using these different visors to investigate the world, rather than our world is it's hard to find your way around and we need to figure out a tool to do that. It's like it's baked into the Metroid tradition of upgrades. You know, you have to go somewhere to get the X-ray vision so that you can then find the next path forward. It's like part of that Metroidvania upgrade path.
Yeah.
And it's just like intrinsic to like the story and the experience. It's not a like approachability tool. It's not like something added onto the game to make it more easy to play. It's like it is the game, and I think that's why it works so well for me.
I think it's so digestible as well because I know Samus isn't a robot; she's a person wearing a suit, but it's got a very kind of robotic feel to it. The way it's used in Metroid, partially because like the art style it's presented, it feels like not necessarily a reference in the way that we think of Marvel movies main references, but feels like it's a reference to the kind of Terminator vision, you know, to like lock, target, kill, that kind of like a scanning with something deeper than your eyes almost, you know, like looking for something that is exploring in a way that you can only do with a certain type of vision that just simply looking at things doesn't allow for it, whether that be with heat or whether that be as it works in Prime with like the lore information. That's how the game survives with no dialogue, which knows what we talked about the last time we did it. So I think like Mirror's Edge, it's really perfectly suited to all the other things it's already pulling from to tell its story, all the things that touchstones that it knows the audience is going to have, and yet manages to feel fresh.
Totally. Yeah, like, and you know, as a bounty hunter, it's like a tool of the trade, and it's so it fits Samus so well. I mean, she's an exterminator, and and this is like on her tool belt of things she uses to exterminate aliens. Okay, cool. All good choices and different and interesting ways, like we always manage to do. Let's talk about some other ones that are good. Let's talk about the big ones. So we talked a little bit about how this sort of evolved from like the thermal scope or the night vision goggles. It was really, I think, Condemned Criminal Origins that was the first modern version of detective mode. The first, like the one that was similar to Arkham before the Arkham games made it a mainstream core mechanic. Condemned did it too, but I haven't played Condemned, so I don't have much to say about it. Have either of you played it?
I was too young. It was too scary.
Like George can actually know. I haven't.
Yeah. So Arkham, part of why it became this thing that shows up in every game is because Arkham did it so well. It was so cool.
Perfectly.
Yeah. To the point where it's tempting to just play the whole game in detective mode.
I never understood that. I've heard that complaint so much, but like it hurts my eyes to be in it too much. I really do think of it as like a limited, especially during stealth. Like it's really cool to see where everyone is and see the little like interactions, like you see their heartbeat and stuff. But playing it the whole game, no, I couldn't do that.
No,
you're just playing skeletons.
I do understand what Eric means and what people mean when they say that. Like it's so well integrated into being Batman. And I think that's a big thing as well, just that it's because, Spider-Man has this, and that textually, again, makes sense, the spider sense, but it doesn't ever, and part of it is Batman invented it, and you get a lot of kudos for inventing it as opposed to stealing it from somebody else, especially when Spider-Man also steals Batman's combat. But it doesn't feel as good as Spider. I love the Spidey games, but the Detective Vision stuff especially, I don't think feels as good as in Arkham. And I do think it's the way in which all of the games, even the ones that people say don't fully hit the way that they probably should, they all commit to this really dark, gothic, like proto-Batman vibe. You know, they're not just dropping Batman into a story. They're all committing to Rocksteady's vision of Gotham, which is dark, cold, weather-beaten. Obviously, the first game just plays entirely in Arkham, and I think that really helps with it because everything is so dark that it does feel like, I mean, Batman doesn't have superpowers, that's his whole deal, but it feels like it's a superpower that you have because you aren't using it when you get stuck. Like with a lot of the games, it's like, where's the trail? Push out, there's the footsteps, like over there. If you're using it the way Batman would.
Yeah, 100%. And it is cool in the way that Batman's tech would be, like the way that it represents the skeletons of an enemy. That there highlights their weapons in red. Like you do feel like this is exactly the way Batman would make it.
And even from like a UI sort of standpoint, like the noise when it comes on, the like, sick. So cool.
Many of the tools have that in Batman. Like the little radio scanner, I think is really cool, and I hate those things in most games.
Yeah. Oh God.
In
Rocksteady.
In Arkham Shadow, the VR.
I was just going to ask how it works in that.
You tap your temple to turn it on. It's so cool.
Oh, that is cool.
And it still has the like that sound, and it comes out in like a big wave, and you're perched on top of a gargoyle in the corner of a room, and you just tap it on and then tap it off. It's very cool. They did it great. And so it, like the stealth thing, I think is definitely the first thing people think of, but it's also a really cool tool for puzzle solving and for finding Riddler trophies, and
of course
the way it lets you sort of scope out the secrets in the world is really well done as well.
I've played every Batman game twice. I've never ever used it to find Riddler trophies because I could not care less about Riddler
I don't
trophies.
like the Riddler stuff.
I hate them so much.
Fake fan here, but not for me.
I found every single one in the first game and in City, and then in Night they went wild.
Yeah, it's the races in Night as well, isn't it?
And the races, it's ridiculous. They went it's like Crash 4. Like, come on, who needs to do all this? This is insane.
Did you do it in Suicide Squad, Eric? Did you get all the Riddler trophies in that?
Still haven't played. Are there Riddler trophies?
Yes. Riddler's coming over the mic, and he actually does the riddles. I think work better in Suicide Squad because he's talking to you, but they're always just like, oh, I might be up high, and you think it sits on top of that tower into this.
But it's also like, because it's like a live service online thing, you've got just endless enemy dialogue, and like your characters are chatting, and then the Riddler's chatting, and you're moving to another area, and then he chats again. Like, awfully designed. Terrible game.
God,
this just in Suicide Squad was a bad game.
Yeah. The Riddler races in Night are atrocious. They're like driving obstacle courses.
I didn't mind the races. They're not the Riddler at all, but I quite like them as a experience to play.
Disagree. Hard disagree.
I quite like Night.
And I think it justifies seeing through walls better than a lot of other games.
Better than any. I don't think there's any game that, other than the Night Vision, the Revolution, and specifically high stealth characters. It works in Metal Gear because it is a stealth game. You are a stealthy character. You are a special operative who has these militaristic tools. I don't like when they just go, I trained as a Witcher, so I can tell you there's a barrel over there. Oh, can you?
Mm-hmm. Now, see, with The Witcher, this is where it's going to get interesting. I kind of understand because The Witchers I'm not a super familiar with the lore, but like they're enhanced by the trials of the classes or whatever. Yeah, like they drink the potions. They have like there's magic going through them. I understand that, but Assassin's Creed. Maybe I need a reminder on Assassin's Creed lore, but a lot of these people are just trained assassins. That should not give them.
Well, no, because it's the Animus. It's the Animus in Assassin's Creed.
then I don't have an argument. I still don't
I
like it.
just don't like Assassin's Creed.
No, I don't like the way Assassin's Creed does it. And I preferred it when they did the eagle, because at least then that's like a mechanic. At least when the eagle flies around, you're doing something. But in Assassin's Creed, it's just click to see. And I never thought of the animus.
Tomb Raider has one they do not really describe at all. And then Tomb Raider also does yellow
Survivor
paint.
sense.
If you find like a tomb in Tomb Raider, there's like several arrows pointing you along the way. And then when you get to a tomb, there's like crosses and like graves painted on the door to a cave, which is very clearly like, in the side of a mountain. And then if you click the Survivor version, it'll be like, oh, walk into this cave. And then a message comes with the bombs around. It's like, there may be a tomb nearby. Like, what do you think? Interesting. And I love Tomb Raider, but I settle down.
I'd forgotten that even had it, to be honest.
We should also mention with the Arkham games that you do use detective mode to do detective
work, yeah.
Too,
yes,
right?
Yeah.
There's like crime scene investigations.
Yeah, press a pig.
Yeah.
That's a really cool one.
You're synthesizing different like smells and chemicals in the air, and like then you can follow trails.
Crime, even bodies. It's amazing. You find bodies and you investigate them. Like Batman looks and he knows where there's been where they've been stabbed or whatever.
I think the way that it can be used to show the enemy's like alert level, like whether they're passive or searching or like literally can see you, I think you can kind of justify that in universe as like the scanner is reading their body signals, it's elevated heart rate, that kind of thing. Though there are a couple things about the tech division that make no sense, like being able to see like vulnerable walls that can be destroyed. Like, what the heck? How would that ever work? Like, that's just magic.
I think, again, it gets credit because it invented the art form and it's very cool.
Yeah.
That's with a lot of kudos.
Wins.
The first game that put a barrel in, and the developer said, if we made this red and make it explode, first person who did that was a genius. Everyone after was a hack. But the first person did it, absolute genius. And that's what Batman is.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Spider-Man's a hack.
Stacey, you mentioned not liking Horizon earlier. And I think Horizon's a pretty cool example because of how it works in the world. And I like the visual effect of it. So, like, Horizon's whole thing is it comes from her earpiece.
The Echo, is it called?
I think it's Echo.
I think that's right.
But it's kind of sad that the three of us don't know.
And I like the augmented reality aspect of it. I like that it's an overlay of the world around her, the way that we're sort of moving in that direction with like smart glasses and stuff like that, where it's like putting some kind of display up in front of you. That doesn't change. It doesn't like change the color and it's not like night vision goggles. It's just like overlaying information on the world. So it like, and Horizon's a very beautiful game. So I'm glad that they don't make this different
go
vision
like
mode.
Neon green color so you can see things.
Yeah, exactly.
And it has a narrative reason as well. Like that's one of the points of the start of Horizon is Aloy finding that and being introduced to the world through that. So like there's a reason for it to give us the gameplay advantage. So even though I'm not a big fan of Horizon at all, I actually quite like that one. I think that's a good mode.
Yeah. What's your problem with it? What's your problem, Steve?
I feel like it's just a little bit of a gimme. It's just kind of every single quest that you get, you need to be tapping this thing constantly. Like I think there's so much tracking involved in the game. It's a lot of it is built around kind of like being a hunter and being a tracker. Yeah. And I don't know if I would love it if it was more immersive. I don't know if I would just find that a pain and a chore if you had like, I've heard so many times you talk about playing Ark and training things for months. I wouldn't want Horizon to be like that, but I just feel like Horizon is a game that at every single turn, not just with the tech division, with every single design choice it makes, takes the path of least resistance. And I think it makes for a shallow experience. I don't hate it. I don't think it's the absolute worst example, but I was never going to pick it as my favorite because what does detective mode do? It shows you footsteps. the end.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it doesn't have any. I don't feel it has any flavor. I don't feel it has any substance, and I just feel it's bland. And I would say that about every single thing in Horizon.
I would say that one of the flavor things about it is seeing the vulnerabilities on the monsters, the way you can scan to look at the different parts of it.
I'm on the other end.
I think it works well. Yes, I will concede that my throwaway comment that I don't like it very much. I will concede that it's fine in combat. I just find it dull. You don't like it in combat though, George.
I think it's a bit overpowered. I think in a similar way to Hitman, which is on my list, you have the assassin vision. I guess that's what they call it there. Like,
well, it used to be like satellite data. I think back in like Absolution, the idea was that there was some satellite giving you that info.
Ah, okay. And that might be why there's like smoky digital trails and everything. That kind of makes sense for that one. They gave that up in the newer ones though.
Yeah.
It's too much. Like, I understand for a game like Hitman where you need to be tracking your target and seeing everything, it is really handy, but I also find like at a certain point that's a game where I can understand where people are like, I would just play this for as often as I can in this mode. And I think Horizon's the same, where if I just know how to take down every dinosaur, like their weakest points by pressing R3 at every point, then why wouldn't I do that?
Yeah.
I think it takes away a bit.
Yes, so you're still going to hit them. You're still going to like tie them up and aim for them. Though there's still a lot.
Yeah,
of
course you do have to do the thing, but I like the learning process, and it kind of takes away a bit, I think.
Really?
Another one of my favorites is Dark Vision from Dishonored.
Yes.
Yeah, and
Dishonored
that's probably the most of all the ones we've discussed. The most where it feels like you're in control of it. I think there's a lot of times when a game uses it as a kind of a get out. The developers push stuff in the game and they go, let's use detective vision. They'll just use yellow thing. I think Dishonored, I don't know, maybe more respectful of your intelligence than some of these games, which is a big facet of why people love Dishonored.
Well, yeah, and I think specifically why the thing it does different and why it works so well for Dishonored is that it is a unlockable, upgradable ability, just like any other of Corvo's abilities. Like it's on your skill tree, and it's something you can spec into, right? And it has this upgrade path where you're like learning to use the dark vision more and more as you progress through the game. And at first you can use it to like look at people, then you can upgrade it to be able to see technology. And then the last tier of it is actually premonition. So you can see the path that people are going to walk on. Right?
I don't think I ever used it that much. I think I
didn't ever evolve it to that level, no.
So it's a cool tool for stealth, right? But it like also makes sense that you're training this ability to the point where you can eventually like gain the power of premonition.
You are becoming Batman in a sense.
Yeah, I think that's super cool. The Last of Us we mentioned as well. The Last of Us makes no sense at all. And they don't even try to make it make sense.
One of the few things in The Last of Us, and most people disagree with this, only a few, but one of the few things in The Last of Us that it objectively does poorly.
Yes.
Yeah.
It is not good.
I think it's a good gameplay tool, but in terms of explaining it, like you say, there isn't one. Joel's a smuggler. He listens to stuff. He's had to listen to stuff. I don't know.
I don't even think it's a good gameplay tool. I think it is purely a crutch. I think it is the crutch that people say detective mode is. Like, a lot of people talk about survivor mode in Last of Us as being the best way to play the game.
Me.
And the reason it's the best way to play the game is because it doesn't have it doesn't have this listen mode. You have to just pay attention to your surroundings, be careful. And when it's used in the lower difficulties, it's just to not frustrate the player. It's just to speed up the game, right? To give you outs, just to like make the game less frustrating for people that don't want to commit to this like ultra hard mode. There's other reasons Survivor's the hardest, right? It's like you get killed with one shot.
Oh my god,
There's other reasons, but I think it demonstrates that the game would be better without listen mode. and that it's in the game to make it appeal to a wider audience, which is, I get it. It's a big commercial game that needs to sell a bajillion copies, but it makes it a worse game.
It's the same kind of top-down design, though, isn't it? Like, a lot of these things are in there essentially because they offer a little bit of ease. I just think The Last of Us is less successful in fooling you into that. And, having played the Lost levels and heard the commentary and how much thought they very clearly put into every single thing that they do, I think it's odd that it has been given a other games do this, so we're going to steal it treatment.
Mm.
That's not really The Last of Us's style. And we've seen again something that I think you were about, Eric, the E3 trailer for The Last of Us, like with the way the combat were, like we know there was a more ambitious version of how The Last of Us worked in 2013 that still wasn't realized in 2020 or in the 2024 remaster. So they obviously, I think it would be very fair to suggest that Naughty Dog are a studio with major ambitions that they will need to compromise on as games are developed. And they seem pretty good at doing that, other than the live service game. They seem pretty good at getting games out the door with something new in them every time that probably is smaller than they originally imagined. Listen mode's probably a compromise for that. But I think 100%. It's a bad example.
I think that's the perfect way to describe it. Yeah, it's a compromise in a game that is like completely uncompromised otherwise.
Yeah.
I think both of you are correct, but as someone to say my piece on it, as someone who's done Survivor on both games and had
it's
time
a real gamer.
Stuck, as the real gamer here
Siri
who
can't
has
have struggled,
I struggled, and going back to a mode where you have it, you appreciate it. Yeah, it doesn't make sense, and yeah, it is a gimme, but the hell of crushing and Survivor where you can't use it, going back to a mode where you can is like seeing an old friend, which is probably way too kind for The Last of Us, but I am being kind.
Would you like Survivor without the like one hit kill and all the other things that make it hard if it just didn't have the listen mode?
Yeah, I still would, but it would be less interesting. It is all of them working together.
Because I don't think that's the main thing that makes.
No, it's not. It's
Survivor.
all of it. It's all of it in
big
one
thing, isn't it?
It's a limited ammo, because one hit kill, if you had loads of ammo, would be fine. The ammo and resources is the hardest part.
Yeah, definitely.
You're going from bit to bit, skin of your teeth, which is great.
It's kind of trying to recreate in No Return. Obviously, No Return is much easier, but No Return kind of captures that feeling, I think, on a smaller level, but with listen mode.
Another game I love that does detective mode really poorly is Guardians of the Galaxy.
I got that on my list as well.
That has one?
Yeah, we get Quill's visor. It's just like a
Oh my
really
God.
ugly infrared thing.
It's so ugly. It just turns people into solid blocks of like pink, like fuchsia. And it just has no place in this game at all. It's a totally linear, like Uncharted style action adventure game, and there's just no reason that they needed this.
I mean,
like you forgot it even exists, right?
Yeah, no, I don't remember that at all.
We all love Guardians of the Galaxy, but I mean, it's got so many quick time events, and it's a dated video game. It has detectivation in because it looks and feels like a game that was made in 2014.
Yeah, yeah, not good. Some other ones worth mentioning. One of my favorite games, I'm sure we've talked about it before. Not one of my favorite games, but one of my favorite games to talk about. X2 Wolverine's Revenge.
We have never talked about that, but that is an amazing game.
Oh, we haven't? I thought it had come up on this show.
X-Men
I
Origins
love that
Wolverine
game.
we've done.
Do you mean the PS2 one, Eric?
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that game. That used to scare me so much.
And,
he's creepy.
Wolverine's senses.
He walks around sniffing, doesn't he? Like he's
yeah. Stacey, you mentioned Witcher Vision.
Yes.
Which is it's detective-y at least, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
the bright red footprints, and there's some of it's like based on smell. When it's used within a quest, and it's like, oh, there's lavender in the wind.
Yeah.
You can like find the place. Yeah.
I hate it.
Is Siri gonna have it when she's not a real Witcher? Ooh.
Yeah.
George the real gamer over here with problems.
I hate it. I think it's overused and it's really slow. And I understand that witches are kind of like detective-y monster killers, but it's just really not good in a gameplay sense.
Yeah. Then we sort of get into the ones where this is the reason people say that it's in every game and they have to stop. We must stop using detective mode. Games like Days Gone,
Yeah.
Investigate mode, The Division. I can't remember what the name of it is. You mentioned Tomb Raider, Far Cry. Far Cry has this, Dead Space. It really was just like everywhere for a while. Like all those games are from an era, right?
Yeah.
Division, Dead Space, Far Cry. I think that's all the major ones. Unless you guys have anything else to say about Eagle Vision.
No, the only one that's the only one that I had written down. We haven't talked about much, but I think it's just kind of detective vision, isn't it? Really, like it's got a cool name, and it was really early in the race, and obviously you see things from on high, but it doesn't actually do anything that special. It's just again a little bit more foundational, which I think has been Ubisoft's problem in that era. They came up with so many cool ideas, and one, everyone stole them, and then two, they just kept repeating them over and over again, and now all their games seem boring because they're doing things they invented 10 years ago. Longer.
Not cool anymore.
They're not.
I had one game I wanted to mention that we will never ever bring up on the show again.
Yeah.
Detroit Become Human. The sections with Connor, the only good bits of that game, which are actually probably fitting, but the Connor bits are good. They're not yawn worthy. And what I like about that detective vision, I can't remember what they called it, it doesn't matter, is that when you do the investigations to find clues, that actually has a meaning. Like you can use that as evidence when you're chatting to people. And like the first scene of the game with Connor, where you're like trying to convince the person to not shoot the hostage, I'm certain if you find something in that environment, you can use it to your advantage. And it's like Batman. It's kind of like this. It's used nearly in the exact same ways as Batman, but it has an impact beyond. Oh, you found the clue. We'll unlock the door so you can go forward. It's like you found a clue if you looked, and you can use that to talk to someone.
Gets added to your dialogue tree.
Did you
like that?
Did you actually like the Connor section, or just because Mr. Krabs is in them?
For both reasons, because if Mr. Krabs swears, that's a good game in my book. Just ignore the rest of it, which is ass and.
I don't mind the Connor sections actually.
Yeah,
does Red Dead have detective vision?
Yes, it has this hunting vision stuff, that is boring and
it
slow.
has the gun, which I can't remember what that's called either. Slow down bullet time.
Deadeye,
yeah, bullet time is what
I would count that more as like a. I think bullet time
mechanic,
would be a
separate mechanic, but that's what I associate more as detective vision stuff, because I didn't use the hunting stuff as much, whereas everyone used Deadeye.
I think that's going to have to be its own episode.
Ooh.
Yeah,
that's a good one.
Well, can you pick Red Dead?
There's a teaser.
She just spoiled it. All right, maybe not. All right, gamers. That is going to be it for this episode of Your Favorite Game. Those are our favorite games with detective vision, but we also would love to know your favorite games with detective vision, so leave us a comment. Don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the bell, and visit us at thegamer.com. That's The Gamer, no spaces.